I told myself it could be someone stranded, someone dehydrated, delirious, desperate. Maybe their boat sank and they washed up in this miracle. Oddity. Curse. The door creaked open an inch. Not from the knocking. Not from wind. Something had opened it. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped onto the small platform under the doorframe. My fingers trembled as I pushed the door open farther. The smell hit me first, salt, rot, and something else. Something metallic. Like blood that had dried long ago. The house was dark inside. Dark in a way that swallowed the beam of my flashlight, bending the light into soft, useless shapes. The wallpaper was shredded, hanging like wet seaweed. Black mold crawled up the walls in spirals that looked almost deliberate, like they were part of a pattern. "Anyone here?" I whispered. The door slammed behind me. I spun, heart punching my ribs. The knob rattled as the boat pulled slightly on the rope, but the door held fast. When I tried to open it, it didn't budge. Something dripped above me. The flashlight beam climbed the staircase, slowly, reluctantly. Dark liquid dripped down each step, thick and tar-like, leaving smeared trails that looked like something had been dragged upward, or downward. And then I heard footsteps. Not soft ones. Heavy ones. Too heavy for any normal person. They echoed from the second floor, steady, deliberate, pacing in slow circles directly above where I stood. The house tilted. Just a little. As if something upstairs had shifted its weight. I backed into the corner, gripping the flashlight so tightly my knuckles cracked. The footsteps stopped. Then came that knocking again. But this time, it wasn't on the door. It was on the floor. Right above me. 3 slow, heavy thuds, each one sending dust raining down from the cracked ceiling. I swallowed the scream crawling up my throat. Something moved just beyond the staircase landing, a shape shifting behind the railing, too large, too tall, too thin. The first thing I heard was knocking. Not on my boat. Not on the hull. It came from somewhere out in the open ocean, 3 slow, heavy knocks, as if someone were rapping their knuckles against a door that shouldn't have existed for hundreds of miles in any direction. At first, I thought it was the engine sputtering again, but then it came a second time. 3 deliberate thuds. Wood on wood. I killed the motor. The sea became quiet, too quiet, like sound itself was holding its breath. Then I saw it. At first, it looked like a shadow drifting over the water, a rectangular shape that didn't belong in the rolling waves. As I drifted closer, the shadow became a roof, then windows, then an entire house. A 2-story Victorian home, faded sea blue paint peeling from the siding, bobbing gently on the surface like it had grown roots in the water itself. And then I saw the door. It was moving. Not blown by wind, not opened by waves, it was knocking. From the inside. I should have turned the boat around. Any sane person would have. But curiosity is a disease, and mine had been festering long before I ever spotted that impossible house. I'd spent the last month wandering the ocean alone, trying to outrun a life I no longer wanted. But the ocean has a way of giving you things you never asked for. So I threw a rope over the railing and drifted closer. The air around the house was colder than the surrounding water. A dense fog hung in a tight ring around it, as if it were exhaling frost. I touched the exterior wall. The wood was dry. Completely dry, despite floating who knows how long in open water. Another knock. This time, faster. I nearly slipped off the deck. "Hello?" I called. "Is someone in there?" Silence. Only the creaking of the house, the groan of sodden beams shifting slightly with the waves. My pulse hammered in my ears. The shadows bent toward it like they were being pulled. And then the house whispered. Not with a voice. With the wood itself. As if the entire structure were breathing words through its rotting frame. "Come upstairs." My skin went cold. I stumbled back toward the door, tugged on the handle with every ounce of strength I had, but it still wouldn't give. The footsteps started again, descending the stairs. One step. Another. Another. Each one vibrating through the floorboards beneath my feet. The flashlight flickered. The air thickened. My ears filled with a low hum, like something deep in the structure of the house was waking up, aware of me, hungry for me. I didn't know it then, but stepping into that house was the moment I stopped being alone on the ocean. Because whatever lived inside it had been waiting for me. The footsteps crept down the staircase with the rhythm of something that had learned how to imitate walking without ever having needed to. Each step landed a fraction too long, like a wrong note in an otherwise familiar song. The air thickened with something neither heat nor cold, just pressure, like the house itself was leaning toward me. I backed against the entryway as the flashlight trembled in my hand. The beam flickered across the staircase, revealing splintered railings and claw marks, fresh ones, that had gouged deep into the banister. Something had scraped its way up and down these stairs many times. Another step. Another. The thing was close enough now that the wooden steps bent under its weight. A silhouette spilled into view through the slats of the railing, tall, crooked, with elongated limbs that moved too gracefully for their length. It was like watching a spider learn how to be human. Finally, a foot came into view. It wasn't a human foot. It was bare, pale, and swollen, almost translucent, yet too large, too stretched, the skin pulled thin like wet paper. Something pulsed beneath it. Veins? Worms? I couldn't tell.
Before we move on, please donate me in the form of subscribe.
I swallowed a scream and darted toward the hallway to my right. The house shifted with me, a slow tilt, as if it disapproved of my choice but was willing to humor me. The knocking upstairs stopped. Silence stretched, taut like a wire. Then the footsteps changed direction. They were coming down fast now, heavy and eager. I sprinted into the hallway, nearly slipping on a warped floorboard. The hallway stretched longer than it should have. Much longer. My brain pushed against the impossible geometry, but the house didn't care what I understood. It wanted me disoriented. Doors lined the walls on either side, each slightly open, breathing cold air into the corridor. I glanced into the first room, empty, wallpaper peeling in long strips, a broken crib lying on its side like a carcass. The second room was worse. Something had been nesting there. Piles of shredded fabric, bones that were unmistakably human-sized, and a smell of iron so strong it burned my nostrils. The footsteps grew louder behind me. Closer. I ran. The hallway bent sharply right, then left, twisting as though reconfiguring itself while I moved. The sound of wood splintering exploded behind me. Whatever was chasing me wasn't bothering with careful descent anymore. I reached the end of the hallway. A dead end. A boarded-up window stared back at me, its wood soaked with something dark that ran in thick streaks toward the floor. I pressed my hands against it, hoping the boards were weak, but they didn't budge. The footsteps stopped just behind the corner. I could hear it breathing, or at least something mimicking breath. A wet, sticky inhalation, like lungs filled with seawater. I turned slowly. For a moment, nothing was there. Then a hand reached around the corner. A hand far too large, with fingers that bent in uneven joints. The skin looked like wax soaked in brine, swollen and translucent, faintly luminescent from something writhing underneath. It splayed along the wall, dragging its nails as if testing the texture, tasting the surface through touch. The rest of the creature's body followed. It leaned forward, head tilted slightly, as if appraising me. Its face, if it was a face, was sunken and long, with features stretched thin by time or the ocean itself. Its eyes were hollow sockets filled with swirling darkness, like someone had scooped the insides out and left behind a void. But it was the mouth that froze me. Because it wasn't just on its face. Mouths, small, quivering slits, covered its neck, its chest, its arms, its swollen legs. Each one breathed in sync, expanding and contracting like gills tasting the air. Its main mouth opened last. Not to bite, but to speak. And in a voice that sounded like rotting wood cracking beneath weight, it whispered. Upstairs. I bolted. The creature lunged, slamming into the hallway wall with a force that made the entire house shudder. Boards cracked. Nails screamed out of their sockets. I felt the vibration through the floorboards as I raced back toward the staircase. The stairs looked worse up close than from below, some broken, some soaked with that dark sludge. But they led upward, away from whatever thing had crawled down after me. I grabbed the railing and ascended 2 steps, before stopping cold. The house was shifting. I don't mean tilting. I mean changing. The stairs ahead stretched upward, lengthening like pulled taffy. The top of the staircase moved farther away the more I climbed. A low hum vibrated through the walls, a pulse echoing the beat of a heart the size of the entire structure. Behind me, the creature shrieked. It was a sound like air being forced through 1,000 tiny mouths at once, high, piercing, and impossibly close. The house responded. The stairs snapped back into their original shape, violently, almost throwing me off. I saw my chance. I climbed, 3 steps, 4, 5, just as the creature hurled itself upward, slamming into the lower step so hard the boards splintered beneath it. I reached the 2nd floor. The air here was colder. The darkness thicker, more deliberate. Doors lined the hallway in perfect symmetry, each one shut tight except for the last, the one at the end, hanging half open, leaking dim blue light that reflected off the wet walls. The creature reached the top of the stairs behind me. I darted into the lit room and slammed the door shut. And then I saw why the room glowed. There was a window. And outside that window, the ocean was gone. The world outside the window was wrong. Where the ocean should have been, endless black waves, the rolling horizon, even the fog, there was nothing but a vast, empty void. Not darkness. Not night. Just a pale, washed-out expanse stretching infinitely in all directions, like someone had erased the world and left the background unfilled. My mind buckled at the sight. I stumbled backward, my breath stuttering in my throat. The house groaned under me, its timbers flexing like muscles reacting to a wound. Behind the door, the creature scraped its claws across the wood. A dozen little mouths chattered, whispering in wet, broken consonants. I held my breath. If it heard me. The scratching stopped. Silence. Then, a single, deep inhale from the creature. As if it were smelling through the cracks. Finding me. Learning me. I scanned the room for anything I could use. The room looked like a child's bedroom once. A rusted metal bed frame leaned against the wall, its mattress long rotted away. Stuffed toys lay scattered across the floor, half fused with mold, a teddy bear with seaweed sprouting from its eye socket, a doll with porcelain skin cracked like an eggshell and filled with black sludge. But the window. The pale void flickered. Just once. Like a dying fluorescent bulb. And then images began appearing inside it. Not outside, inside, like a screen. At first, they were soft and blurry, like impressions formed from fog, waves churning in slow time-lapse, shadows beneath the surface twisting in unnatural ways. Shapes rose and fell, massive silhouettes drifting like whales that had never existed in this world. Then the images sharpened. I saw myself. In my boat. Alone. The version of me in the window wasn't moving. He sat perfectly still, hands folded in his lap, eyes wide open and unblinking. His skin looked pale. Sodden. Bloated. Dead. I staggered back in horror just as the doorknob beside me began to turn. Slowly. Click. 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 I grabbed the bed frame, wedged the rusted metal against the door, and braced my body against it. The pressure behind the door increased. Something slammed into it once. Twice. The entire room shook. Up. Stairs. The creature rasped through one of its many mouths. I clenched my teeth and held the frame tighter. The door bulged inward. Just a fraction, but enough that a single, pale fingertip slid through the crack and stretched, elongating unnaturally as if made of rubber. It reached for me, twitching. The window behind me flickered again. This time, it wasn't my boat. It was the first floor of the house. The hallway. Except, something was different. The walls were clean. The floors unrotted. The wallpaper whole. A woman walked down the hallway. She wore a simple blue dress, hair tied back neatly. She was humming softly, her voice echoing faintly in the room as if coming from a distant radio. She stopped at the bottom of the stairs, turned, and looked straight into the window. Straight at me. Her eyes went wide with terror, and she mouthed something. I leaned closer. Her lips formed a word. Run. The window shattered. Not outward, inward. Glass exploded into the room like a burst of ice. The void beyond the shattered frame opened like a mouth and exhaled a cold so deep it felt ancient.
Before we move on, please donate me in the form of subscribe.
The wind sucked the air out of the room, pulling at me, dragging me toward the open gap. No, no. I dropped to the floor, claws of freezing wind tearing at my clothes. Dolls and stuffed animals lifted from the ground and flew into the void, twisting and contorting as they vanished. The door behind me splintered. The creature's arm punched through the wood, elbow bending the wrong way, fingers clawing at the air as if desperate to catch me before the void did. The floor tilted. My fingers scraped across the boards, desperate for purchase. My leg lifted off the ground, then my hip, then my chest. I was being pulled into the window. I grabbed the edge of the bed frame with one last burst of strength. The metal dug into my palms but held. The wind screamed. My body lifted completely off the floor, dangling horizontally as the void tried to swallow me whole. Behind me, the creature shrieked, a guttural, furious sound that rattled the entire second floor. The bed frame wrenched in my grip. My fingers slipped. Then. The wind stopped. I fell onto the floor hard, gasping. The void sealed shut with a sound like a deep inhalation, and the window was whole again, but different. No cracks. No pale void. Just a black, glossy pane reflecting my face. Except. The reflection wasn't moving. Not even to breathe. The creature punched through the door, pulling its enormous form into the room. Its many mouths chattered in unison as its main mouth stretched into a malformed grin. It took one step toward me. Then two. I stared at the reflection again. And my reflection lifted its hand, not matching mine, and pointed behind me. I dove aside just as something massive crashed through the floorboards beneath my feet. A tendril of the house itself, pale wood that had twisted into a root-like appendage, shot upward, grabbing blindly at the air. The creature shrieked again, this time recoiling. The house was moving. Protecting me. Attacking both of us. I didn't know. I only knew one thing. I needed to get out. The creature lunged. The house lurched. I sprinted out the splintered doorway and back into the hallway as the floor behind me collapsed entirely, swallowing both creature and room into a yawning darkness below. The house groaned like it was waking from a nightmare. But I wasn't free yet. At the end of the hallway, just past the staircase. Another door had appeared. A door that hadn't been there before. A door breathing. The new door pulsed softly, as if inhaling and exhaling through the wood. Each breath made the surface expand outward in slow waves, like something inside was pressing a face against it. The air around it vibrated with a low hum, warped, uneven, like a heartbeat that didn't understand rhythm. I didn't want to go near it. But behind me, the hallway groaned. The floorboard split where the creature had fallen through, and something down there was still moving. Slowly. Wetly. Like it was climbing. And the house felt weaker now, its shifting less confident, as if whatever spark inside it had saved me a moment ago was dying. The breathing door inhaled again. The hum deepened. I approached it slowly, step by reluctant step. The closer I got, the colder the air became, not ocean cold, something else. The cold of empty space. The cold of absence. My hand hovered over the door. It exhaled against my palm. The breath was warm. I yanked my hand back in horror. Before I could rethink, the floor behind me split apart. A pale hand shot up through the boards, fingers dislocating as they stretched toward me. The creature's arm, bloated, bone-thin in the wrong places, dragged itself upward. Dozens of tiny mouths on its skin screamed at once, a chorus of piercing shrieks that made the lights flicker. I did the only thing I could. I grabbed the handle of the breathing door and pulled. It swung open into darkness. Not normal darkness. This was thick, physical, like stepping into oil. A forceful rush of wind hit my face, pulling inward as if the room were vacuuming reality toward itself. The creature behind me screeched and hurled its upper body out of the hole, limbs bending, snapping, reforming like wet clay. Its main mouth opened wide, not to bite, but to howl. Not words. Warnings. I stepped through the door. The darkness swallowed me whole. It wasn't a room. It wasn't a hallway. It wasn't space as I understood it. For several seconds, maybe minutes, maybe longer, I drifted without weight, without sense of direction, without a body. My thoughts scattered like sand in a storm. At some point I tried to scream, but I wasn't sure if I had lungs here. Then the darkness thinned. And I was standing on a staircase. A perfectly normal, clean, pristine staircase. Warm light filtered down from a chandelier. The wallpaper was gold and cream, free of mold and rot. The wood gleamed as if freshly polished. A soft melody, piano, gentle and slow, floated through the air. I recognized the song. My mother used to play it when I was a child. I took one shaky step forward. The house was the same house, same shape, same walls, but in perfect condition, the way it must have looked decades ago. A framed family portrait hung above the stairwell, a man and woman in formal clothes, a young girl in a blue dress, a little boy holding his sister's hand. Their faces were blurred. Smudged out deliberately, as if someone had erased them with a thumb. From the top of the stairs, I heard humming. The same humming I'd heard earlier, when the woman appeared in the window that wasn't a window. Soft, steady, almost gentle. Hello. I called out before I could stop myself. The humming paused. Then resumed, faster this time. I climbed the stairs slowly, every instinct screaming at me to turn back. At the landing, the air shifted. The warmth drained away, replaced by a pressure in my ears like I was being pulled upward by an invisible tide. The hallway at the top stretched unnaturally long. At the end stood a woman in the blue dress. Her hair was neatly pinned. Her posture rigid, hands clasped in front of her. She did not turn around. But she spoke. "You should not be here." Her voice trembled. Not weak, terrified. I approached slowly. "Who are you? What is this place?" She shook her head. "It doesn't matter. You need to leave. Now. Before." The lights flickered overhead. The woman gasped and backed away, pressing herself against the wall as if trying to melt into it. A deep groan rolled through the hallway, the sound of a structure shifting its weight. Except this time, it wasn't the house. It was something inside the walls. Behind the wallpaper, the plaster bulged. Something pressed outward from within, like a massive shape sliding along the interior of the house. The light bulbs popped one by one. The woman's voice cracked. "It heard you." The wallpaper tore open down the hallway. A colossal eye stared out. Not animal. Not human. Just a single, milky white orb the size of a dinner plate, embedded in the wall like something had grown inside the house and was pressing against its skin. Veins pulsed across the plaster. The eye rolled, searching. The woman grabbed my wrist with ice-cold fingers. "This place isn't a house," she whispered. "It never was. It's a body." The wall split open further. A second eye surfaced. Then a third. The structure moaned, a deep, guttural sound resonating through the floor and into my bones. The woman shoved me toward a door at the end of the hall. "Go." The door wasn't breathing this time. It shook violently, rattling in its frame. As I reached for it, the walls trembled and the lights burst in a shower of sparks. Something huge moved behind us. A mass. A shape. A sound like wet meat being dragged through a space too small to contain it. I yanked the door open. And froze. Because the stairwell beyond wasn't a stairwell anymore. It was the ocean. Black waves roiled upward, smashing against the doorway, surging like a storm collapsed into a single frame of space. Water sprayed my face. Wind howled. Lightning flashed somewhere deep inside the impossible seascape. Behind me, the house body groaned louder. The woman screamed. I made a choice. I jumped. The ocean swallowed me. Then everything went silent. When I hit the water, it felt like smashing into a wall of ice and darkness. The shock tore the air from my lungs. I flailed blindly, kicking upward, or what I thought was upward, until my head broke the surface. But the ocean wasn't the ocean. It wasn't even water. It was a room. A room filled with water. The walls rose around me like glass tanks, smooth and rectangular. A chandelier hung from the ceiling above, swaying gently as though underwater itself. The furniture, sofas, chairs, coffee tables, floated weightlessly around me, rotating slowly like debris caught in a lazy current. Paintings stared at me from the submerged walls. Their colors blurred. Their faces distorted. The eyes in one portrait followed me with lifelike precision, pupils drifting like ink in water. My lungs burned. I kicked toward a floating bookshelf and grabbed onto it, letting my body rise just enough to breathe from the thin pocket of air trapped at the ceiling. My face broke into that precious dome, and I gasped for oxygen like a drowning animal. The chandelier chimed as it bumped against the ceiling, each crystal clink echoing like a distant bell. How was any of this possible? Before I could think, a muffled sound vibrated through the water. A voice. A woman's voice. "Don't, stay, there." I jerked violently, nearly losing my grip on the shelf. The voice came from beneath me. Through the water. Through the furniture. Through the house itself. I held onto the shelf with one hand and looked down into the watery depths of the room. And I saw her. The woman in the blue dress. Her body drifted weightlessly near the floor of the submerged room, hair flowing outward like dark seaweed. Her face was pale but intact, except her eyes were wide open and glowing faintly with that same unnatural blue light I'd seen in the earlier window. Bubbles slipped from her lips as she tried to speak again. Up. Her mouth struggled. Upstairs. The last word gurgled out in a stream of bubbles that spiraled toward the surface. I shook my head. I tried getting upstairs, something was there. Something. A deep vibration rattled the walls. The water shuddered. The floating furniture trembled as if caught in a sudden invisible tide. The woman's body jerked unnaturally, yanked backward by something dark beneath her, something coiled like a shadow. I barely had time to inhale before the entire room tilted. Not rotated. Tilted. The water surged sideways, slamming into me with violent force. The bookshelf ripped out of my hands. I tumbled through the flood, smashing into a dining table, spinning like a rag doll. The chandelier swung wildly above, casting shifting shapes across the submerged floor as the room pitched further. The paintings tore off the walls and drifted past me like drowning ghosts. I managed to grab a floating sofa cushion and held on, chest heaving as the water spit me upward into another small air pocket near what used to be the upper corners of the room. I couldn't survive another tilt. Something massive shifted beneath the floor. A push, a pulse, like a heartbeat. The house was alive. The woman's warning echoed inside my head. Upstairs. But how? There were no stairs here. Just a door on the far wall, a door now half submerged, its knob glinting like an artifact beneath the waterline. A door breathing bubbles. I didn't want to go near it. But I didn't have a choice. I kicked off the cushion and swam toward the door as fast as I could. Shadows moved beneath me, large ones, circling like deep-sea predators.
Before we move on, please donate me in the form of subscribe.
Something brushed my foot, something slimy and soft. I pushed myself harder. My fingers closed around the doorknob. It didn't turn. I screamed underwater, bubbles exploding from my mouth. I pulled again. The room vibrated. The water around me shook violently. The house moaned, a low, cavernous sound that reverberated through my teeth. The knob twisted. The door flew inward. And instead of another room, a staircase rose out of the darkness. Impossible, gleaming, dry despite the water crashing around it. Each step pulsed with a faint blue glow, like veins illuminated beneath skin. I swam through the doorway and dragged myself up the stairs, coughing water out of my nose and lungs. The moment I crossed the threshold, the water stopped following me. It simply ended at the door like an invisible barrier held it back. I collapsed on the first landing, gasping, shaking violently. Behind me, something slammed against the doorway. Once. Twice. A wet, heavy thud. Something big was trying to get through. I stumbled upward, using the railing to pull myself along. The staircase twisted in strange spirals, leading me deeper into the heart of the house. The blue glow brightened with each step, throbbing in rhythm with the beating pulse I'd felt earlier. At the top of the staircase, a hallway stretched in both directions. In the center of the hallway, the woman in the blue dress stood again. But this time, she wasn't alive. Her skin was gray-blue, waterlogged. Her hair hung in wet ropes. Her skull was slightly misshapen, cracked at the temple where something massive must have struck her. Her jaw dangled loosely, broken, yet she still managed to speak. "The house remembers," she whispered. "It wants you to stay." Her head tilted at a sickening angle. "But you must keep going, before it finishes waking." My voice caught in my throat. Why me? Why is it doing this? Her eyes, milky, glowing faintly, locked onto mine. Because the ocean sent it someone living. She pointed behind me. I turned. The creature from the lower floors was crawling up the walls like a nightmare spider, its limbs bending at impossible angles, mouths opening and closing silently now as though struggling in the thinner air. It saw me. And it leapt. The woman screamed. "Run!" I sprinted down the hallway as the creature slammed into the floor behind me, cracking it open. The walls pulsed, the ceiling bowed, and the blue light intensified until it felt like the house was expanding around us. At the end of the hall stood a single door. A final door. A door not yet awake. I grabbed the knob and twisted. The creature shrieked. The woman's voice echoed. The house moaned. I pushed the door open. And stepped into darkness. I don't remember climbing the staircase, but I remember the feeling, my hands dragging along a wall that pulsed like the inside of a throat. The wood was softer now, darker, wet. The house trembled with each of my footsteps, as if protesting my ascent. Or warning me. At the top of the stairs, the air sharpened, cold enough to sting. The hallway I'd entered during my first exploration was gone. In its place was a long, angled corridor that sloped downward, impossibly, despite being physically above the room I'd come from. The geometry of the place no longer hid its intentions. It bent for me. It shaped itself around me. And ahead. A light. A soft and golden glow, almost warm, almost inviting. Finally, a voice whispered behind the walls. He comes to finish it. My breath froze. It wasn't the house speaking. It was them. The family. I moved without meaning to, each step quieter than the last, as if the air itself absorbed sound. The corridor opened into a circular chamber with a domed ceiling. The structure groaned with every shift of the waves outside. In the very center of the room stood a table. 4 chairs. 4 plates. 4 sets of silverware arranged perfectly, except each piece had a thin film of rot, as if something had decayed on them long ago. And on the table, illuminated by the golden glow, sat a candle. A single, flickering candle. I felt someone behind me. Sit. A hand pressed gently, almost tenderly, against my back. I spun, but nothing was there. Only the faint outline of a person in the wood grain, the faint suggestion of a face pressed against the wall, like something trapped beneath ice. Sit, the voices repeated. My legs moved before I agreed. The chair creaked violently beneath me, the wood flexing like muscle. As soon as I sat, the candle flame elongated, stretching like a finger pointing upward. The dome above us, split open. Not physically. Visually. Reality seemed to peel like wet paint, revealing a swirling black expanse above, alive with tendrils of darkness that reached down, caressing the edges of the table. The family took their seats one by one. Not walking. Not appearing. Just forming, as if the shadows willed them into shape. The father's face was long and sagging, soaked with seawater. The mother's skin shined like a jellyfish membrane, translucent and trembling. The 2 children. I can't describe them without my hands shaking. Their eyes had no iris, just endless black that dripped like ink. We never finished dinner, the mother said, her voice a burble. We waited for you. I don't belong here, I whispered. The father tilted his head, the crack of his neck so loud it echoed. You came to us, he said. And now the ocean has chosen you. The dome rippled. Something massive shifted above, an eye the size of a room blinking just behind the folds of darkness. The tendrils recoiled like it was preparing to strike. It's hungry, the little girl said. She smiled with a mouth too wide, gleaming with tiny lamprey-like teeth. The table began to sink. Not downward. Outward. Like the world was expanding in every direction, stretching the room until the walls melted into the black ocean sky. The candlelight clung to us, the only island in the spreading void. The father lifted his rotting fork. Eat, he said. The plate in front of me filled with something writhing. Something warm. Something that smelled like brine and blood. It pulsed like a living heart. I pushed back from the table. But the chair fused to my spine. You cannot refuse, the mother whispered. The darkness above coiled and lowered, the great eye narrowing, focusing on me alone. The house shuddered. The ocean raged. The void pressed in like lungs exhaling. Then. A sound. A horn. A deep, fog-drenched horn that vibrated through my bones. Another boat. The eye above twitched violently. The tendrils recoiled. The family hissed like boiling seawater. No, the father growled. He is ours. The horn blasted again, closer this time. The candle blew out. Everything vanished. I don't remember breaking free. I don't remember running. I only remember the impact when I collided with the side of a ship, arms grabbing me, voices shouting. When I came to, wrapped in blankets, trembling and soaked with freezing seawater, the captain leaned over me. "You're lucky," he said. "We almost didn't see you." I tried to look back. The ocean was empty. Completely empty. No house. No debris. Not even a ripple. It was as if it had never existed. But last night, while I tried to sleep in the cramped bunk they gave me, I heard it. A slow, gentle creak. Wood bending. Flexing. Breathing. Outside, across the dark horizon, a faint light glowed. Soft. Golden. Flickering. A candle.
The Silent Screams, the channel of interesting horror stories. If you are new on this channel, then don't forget to subscribe The Silent Screams and press the bell icon for interesting stories.